All right, let's get started. Another episode of Tech on Ice. Hope you have a great day. Continuing with the AI discussion, based on for some context, my New Year's resolution is to learn more about AI and LLMs and how they work, not just how to use them, but how they actually work. So, we talked a little bit about like at a super high level what it is. Let's talk about the ones that are most prevalent today, at least from like a in the news in the tech sector, what have you. So you hear the term LLM all the time. LLM stands for large language models, and that's like your proprietary, owned by a fairly well-known AI company model. Um, your ChatGPT, GPT-4o, um, your Gemini, so on and so forth. Claude Sonnet, for instance, and go on. And these are all like GPT based models, which it's funny because as I was going, I didn't know what GPT stands for. I just thought it was just a cool term. But GPT stands for generated pre-trained transformer. So that's like the approach or like the algorithm used um, for these text-based um, generative AI sort of solutions. So when you hear GPT, it's not just a word; it actually has a phrase in the area of study or the research. So LLMs are built off of that. And LLMs, basically, what an LLM is, or a model. Let's just use the phrase model. What it actually is it's two files. It's a parameters file, which can be very large, and another file, which can be like in a programming language of your choice, Python. A lot of people use C, C++, whatever language you want. And that file and that model or in that parameters file, those two files together make what we like to call a model or a language model. And we have large language models, but we also have small language models and our SLMs, so LLMs and SLMs. And the question becomes like, okay, so what should I use in what case? Right? If you're using ChatGPT or if you're using GitHub Copilot or if you're using Gemini, you're using an LLM. However, there might be a need for you to take those models and extend them using your own data, um, maybe building an agent, what have you. And you're going to build an SLM because the data set, the training data, the parameters file is much smaller. So here, like for instance, these numbers probably aren't 100% accurate, but for instance, like GPT-4, like that parameters file, it has 1.7 trillion parameters in it. So, and I don't know how much that correlates into like data size, like file size, because you can actually take these if you have a machine that's powerful enough, you can have the parameters file and you can have your code on the same machine and then host it locally, and that's what a lot of SLMs do. Are people that are playing around in this in the open source space. So 1.7 trillion for a large language model with GPT-4. Like Mistral, for instance, which is an open source small language model, it has like somewhere in the billions. I think it's like 4 billion. I could be wrong. This number isn't probably accurate, but it's in the billions versus the trillions. So, like from a size perspective, it's substantially smaller, which means that you can actually run it on consumer grade hardware. You don't have to have um, you know, tens of thousands of machines that are all have high capacity GPUs plugged in, and that's all training that model, blah, 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 right? You have the ability to use a tool. We talked about Olama in the past. You can use Olama. You pull the model down, you uh, you configure it. Yeah, then you have and then Olama gives you an API endpoint locally on machine. You can write code to hit that, or you can actually use like the Olama CLI to ask it questions and have conversations with it. So the question becomes like, when should you use an LLM versus an SLM? And I think it becomes, what is the goal of your thing that you're building? If you want to build something that just has access to all of the knowledge that's on the crawlable internet, so like I said, 1.7 trillion parameters, you're probably going to want to use an LLM. However, if you want to build something locally to start, and you don't want to like take advantage of paying for one of these LLM offerings, you can build a net. You can use an existing SLM, or you can train your own, and that's going to have smaller parameters so you can run it locally. But it's also there's one important thing to call out about LLMs versus SLMs. LLMs, because of the amount of data they have, are substantially more biased, meaning they think they know the answer because of all of the training they have. When you use an SLM, there's less bias there because the training data is substantially smaller. So this is something interesting to call out because you might be able to you can train and retrain your SLM with your own data set, and you could probably get um, more interesting results that bring you value versus an LLM. And this is interesting, like the LLM versus SLM discussion. I personally have been playing around with SLMs locally. Like I have a new PC that I just built, and I've been playing around with like the latest version of Llama, which is an open source um, model provided by Meta. Um, and it loads. It's funny because it if you take like the 70 billion parameters one, it'll load all that 70 billion parameters into memory, which turns into like you know 40 gigabytes of RAM or something like that, some crazy number. Um, to start, I accidentally downloaded the wrong size model. I downloaded the 240 billion parameters one, and I was nicely told you don't have enough memory for this, which I thought was kind of funny. So if you want to play around with building LLM or building language models locally, playing around with understanding how generative AI works and these GPT sort of algorithms work, highly recommend you go down the path of setting up SLMs. Use Olama like I talked about because it's super straightforward. Maybe in the future we'll talk about actually what you need to like take your own data and train that to give you your own small language model for your own specific use cases. But that's it for me today. Hope you're enjoying this sort of AI stuff. I know I typically talk about .NET and developer stuff, and now I'm kind of swinging into like AI for developers because I think that this is an area that's going to get more and more expected for developers to know information about. So I'm taking the opportunity to do that. So comment down below if you like this sort of stuff or if you want me to go in a different direction. Tell me what you like, what you don't like. And as always, like and subscribe, share with your friends, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.